There is inner work that we can do as parents when we see our child struggling or repeating a pattern that we have repeated, and when we feel helpless to protect them because the area that needs protection lies outside of our direct control and influence. And I wanted to share how doing an inquiry helped me navigate a very difficult situation with one of my daughters. If we haven't met, my name is Anya, and I teach people about spirituality and the power to transform the realities we live in. I'm the author of this book on the subject. You can check it out here on TikTok Shop. So, identity, or our I am, is what we actually need to look at anytime we want to shift something on a much deeper level and help our children and ourselves overcome repeating patterns. So if you've heard me talk before, or you've read my book, you've heard me say that when we get triggered or hijacked by something that happens in our mind or outside of us, it is because there's an unexamined part of our own consciousness, our identity, that feels vulnerable and powerless to that thing in some way. That internal setting, that part, is what makes us think from that defensive survival place and isn't really allowing us to see other options. It is possible not to be ruled by this and not act from it, and not teach our children to act from it, because when we do, it just continues reinforcing the same old thing. Granted, parenting situations around our children's well-being are confusing because we are supposed to protect them. But it's so much more important to do this work, because what will ultimately give our kids freedom and safety is their own connection to their own wisdom, fearlessness, knowing who they are, and not being afraid of the world because of the unquestioned thoughts that they've inherited from us. So when this situation happened to me, I felt powerless, I felt anxious, I felt out of control, I felt angry. The area of life that I felt where my child was going to be affected was outside of what I could control. In fact, to compensate for feeling out of control, I got incredibly controlling, which in fact made my daughter push me away and keep me far, far from her business. But all of the situation was giving me flashbacks of my own youth and my own stressful experiences. Okay, naturally, I decided to do identity work, to do an inquiry, and I teach you how to do this here. But why do this work? From personal experience, I know when I have run out of options, when the ideas that are occurring to me are not making me proud, when they are about control or they are about something that is fear-based, I know I am locked in a room. And in that room, I am the fourth wall, meaning there are thoughts and beliefs that I'm holding on to that are preventing me from seeing outside of the limits of my current problematic reality. And identity work focuses on any problem, on the problem just enough to send the signal back to us and expose in us the conditioning that we can control or undo that plays into the old dysfunctional pattern. Imagine pulling a string from within you and things change in the world. That's exactly how it works. So the way you draw your conditioning out, your I am out, is by taking away its way of managing the problem, imagining that you can't control it or that you can't prevent that bad thing from happening, and then noticing what thoughts and beliefs come up in response to that. Sometimes they surprise you and may have nothing to do with the original problem, but they do play a role. You will see why. So in my case, I sat in that discomfort long enough to start noticing that I was really, really angry. That totally surprised me. Of course, you sit with that anger, and I was sitting with the anger asking myself, what am I angry about? Felt like I couldn't do something. I was prevented from doing something. And what I realized that in my mind, in that vision, I was prevented from exercising my power, including saying the word no. No to the world was like an exercise of my power that wasn't allowed. And that totally blew my mind. But instantly I noticed a few things. How this idea, if inherited by my child, would be incredibly harmful to her. How I inadvertently supported the idea that she could not say no when she resisted me and resisted my control. And how I really needed to focus on something else if I really wanted to help her be powerful in her world. As the questioning continued, I saw a lot more things, like what that power actually disconnected me from in my imagination. So being powerful, saying the word no, honoring who I was, would like cast me out of the village, right? Disconnect me from something, and me suppressing my power was connecting me to existing reality, to people I loved. That was a lie that I continued reaffirming within myself and teaching my children to do the same. Naturally, when I released this thought, and again, it's all here, I began seeing lots more freedom in my parenting. I started getting flashes of wisdom and insight, and an interesting thing that happened, that on one hand, my boundaries and my no to my daughter became much, much stronger. in the areas where I felt like I needed to say no, and in the areas that were not mine to control, the control was released completely. And everything that I began doing and saying started supporting the idea that our power is beautiful, creative. It comes from a place where we're all already connected and we can exercise it without the threat of disconnecting from something really, really beautiful and important. If you're facing these really difficult, triggering, confusing situations around your parenting, I can't tell you enough how important it is to examine your own consciousness, because it's all there. This is deep work. This is not for everyone, but if you're ready for it, you can become the change you wish to see in your world. Check it out here on TikTok Shop.